Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to today's video. We're going to start off with a policy change for Cunard Cruise Lines when it comes to mobility devices, electronic wheelchairs, and mobility scooters on board the cruise ship. So the policy went into effect on September the 3rd, and it says that if you use an electric wheelchair or an electronic mobility device such as a scooter, you can only be booked into a fully accessible cabin or selected grill suites. Now, if you look at the ship layout, the rooms on board Cunard cruise ships, those that are fully accessible or that can accept electronic mobility devices, they will be annotated with a little triangle. Now, why the change? They said it is for both the safety of the crew and the passengers on board the ship. They also said that any guest that books a non-accessible room and then tries to bring an electric mobility device on board, they will be denied boarding, and it will be at their own expense. Now, we saw the same policy change recently from P&O Cruise Lines, both cruise lines owned by the Carnival Corporation. But I want to be clear, no other cruise line has announced this policy change. It is only P&O Cruise Lines. It is only Cunard Cruise Lines. And according to cruise lines, like I said, this is being done for safety. In the event that something catastrophic happens, forces an evacuation of the ship, means that safety procedures, policies have to be reevaluated. Now, most passengers will always understand that safety has to come first, but you know there will be somebody somewhere that will say that this policy is discrimination. They are being discriminated against because the cabin they need is not available. Perhaps it's already booked. But I would say try to remember that catastrophic events can happen. They've happened here in our lifetime. Let's not forget January the 13th, 2012, Costa Concordia. So they can happen, and they have happened even in our cruising lifetime. Next up, we have an itinerary change for the Norwegian Prima on the December 11th sailing from New York. And itinerary changes, they're not uncommon. You could have weather, you could have port congestion, there could be an issue with the cruise ship. We see itinerary changes all of the time for these types of reasons, but that's not the reason for this itinerary change. No, Norwegian has come out and said, we're dropping Bermuda from your itinerary altogether because, well, we want to be more fuel efficient. We want to save some gas money. So the Prima will be skipping Bermuda, we'll be getting an extra sea day, but Norwegian says, look, we're making it up to cruise passengers. They're going to get an extra hour in the Dominican Republic when we dock there. They're going to get 2 additional hours in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and an extra 5 hours in Tortola. Now, will that make up for missing an entire cruise port? Only those booked on that cruise will be able to say, is it okay with them or is it not okay with them? But I'll say this much. This cruise originates in New York and arrives back in New York. And essentially, yeah, I see how, it could be a little bit, I guess, out of the way. They're passing Bermuda as it heads down towards the Caribbean. So exactly how much fuel are they going to be saving? Now, I don't know, but you tell me what you guys think, because this is not the first time Norwegian's made an itinerary change for what they call fuel efficiency. Next up, we have a change from Disney Cruise Lines. If you use a birth certificate and sail on Disney Cruise Lines, it can no longer be a copy. They are now only accepting original birth certificates. No photocopies and no hospital-issued birth certificates. It can only be an original. So if you sail on Disney Cruise Lines, you use anything other than an original birth certificate, make sure you get an original birth certificate prior to your sailing, because again, photocopies will not be accepted. And finally, we got some Carnival Valor updates. Now, we had Hurricane Francine hit New Orleans yesterday. The port was closed, and the Carnival Valor was scheduled to dock yesterday for disembarkation and embarkation. Now, naturally, when the port is closed, the cruise ship is not going anywhere near there. Folks on board got an extra day at sea. Now, this morning, the port did open back up. The Carnival Valor was able to go ahead and dock, disembark the passengers, and embark the next sailing. But of course, the next sailing is now going to be 1 day shorter. And not only is the next sailing going to be 1 day shorter, it is going to be a cruise to nowhere. no port stops will be scheduled, strictly 3 days at sea. Now, in this type of situation, the cruise line does have to essentially apply to the US government and ask for a special exception to the Jones Act, which says a cruise ship has to go to a foreign port before returning to the United States. In the cases of a hurricane like this, they can ask for permission to do a specific cruise to nowhere, which is how these do occasionally happen. All right, now, guests that do go on the 3-day sailing to nowhere, they are being offered compensation. First, they will receive a full refund for 1 day of their cruise, the day that they are missing. They will receive a 1-day refund for any pre-purchased packages, Wi-Fi, drink packages, and each stateroom will get $100 of onboard credit. And guests will also get a 50% future cruise credit, but they put a couple of stipulations on this future cruise credit. First, it has to be used by September the 30th of 2025, but it cannot be used as a deposit, it cannot be used as onboard credit, or for gratuities for the new sailing. So it does have a couple of stipulations on it. And guests that have non-refundable air travel fees, change fees, they can submit paperwork to Carnival Cruise Lines and receive possibly up to $200 per person to help cover those expenses. And for those guests that don't want to do a 3-day sailing to nowhere, they can get 100% refund in future cruise credit. So not a refund back to the original form of payment, but a future cruise credit. Now, these changes are, of course, outside of the cruise line's control. They can't stop a hurricane. They can't make the port stay open. Safety of the passengers, the crew, and the vessel will always come first. And with the shortened cruise, there's just not enough time for the cruise ship to get from New Orleans down to Cozumel, which was the only cruise stop, and then back to New Orleans on time, hence the 3-day cruise to nowhere. Now, there are people out there that would thoroughly enjoy just 3 days of sailing around in the Gulf of Mexico. But if you were booked on that cruise, what do you think? Would you be happy with 3-day sailing to nowhere? Would you want a refund for your cruise? Me personally, I would still take the 3-day cruise to nowhere, take my 50% future cruise credit, get ready to book me another one. All right, and that is going to be our video for today. If you've enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.